Today we're looking at a villa in Tuscany, Italy that was originally built back in the 1800s, but it's recently been restored into a gorgeous property with a lot to explore, so I'm going to tell you everything I like about it and what I don't like about it. Let's check out this villa together. So this is a shot of the front door, and I think there's a couple interesting things to mention in here. First, the color palette. Obviously we've got white on the walls, white on the ceiling, but there's also a lot of green accents in here, right? You can see the door frame we're looking through is this nice soft sage green, similar color to what's on the door itself, and also the door frame on the left side that goes to a room I'm not actually sure what's in there. And then we've got a much deeper green on the curtains, which slide in front of the door. But we've also got some really nice earthy tones and some natural wood colors coming through on the side table next to the love seat here, this shelf/table on the right side, the ceramic vase mounted on the left wall here, and I think this is also maybe a wooden frame around either a photo or a mirror on the right side. And when you combine them all together, the soft greens, the reddish brown earthy tones, and this really bright clean white, it gives you this very inviting and cozy feel that feels really nice to walk into when you first enter this home. Now, I know some of you are wondering, why do they have this curtain in front of the front door? That's something you probably haven't seen before. And in a lot of older homes, especially when the seal on the door isn't very tight, or the window panes are thin and not very good at retaining heat, they put a curtain in front of the front door so that it traps heat in the winter months and the home doesn't get as cold as fast. So I do think it's pretty awkward, especially if you're outside and you're trying to get inside when the curtain is closed. You're going to have to kind of reach around the door and move the curtains like that, right? It's not a good user experience, but they've chosen to do it in here, and I guess it works for them. I still think that this is a really cozy, nice entryway to walk into, some place to put your shoes. That's actually probably what's on the left side here, is a little closet for your shoes and jackets and things like that. And the love seat was a great addition for that, but just a nice way to enter the home and feel like you're at ease. Now, if we twist our perspective 180 degrees, this is the view you'll have when you first enter the home. So you're looking from the foyer through this arched doorway toward the backyard into, I guess this is a dining room or some kind of a games room. And in here, they've got the same tile floors, a really nice soft reddish pink rug, a round pedestal table with a very decorative base, and this X-frame stool in leather on the left side. And then behind there, two French doors opening up to the backyard, and again, twin curtains in front of them, which I think these would at least be a little bit easier to manage since since the doors open like this rather than just in one direction, but it's still not a very good user experience, and I would rather that they didn't have them there. But one thing they've really nailed it with in here is this beautiful white pendant lamp hanging over the dining table. I'm certain that when it gets dark, this lamp is going to cast such a nice soft glow over this table, and the room is just going to look spectacular. There are a couple things you want to keep in mind in this entry area. First, terracotta tiles can be pretty slippery when they're wet, especially in entry areas like this where people are entering the home with wet shoes. Unglazed terracotta like this does have some grip to it, but when you use a herringbone pattern like this, it still needs sealing to prevent moisture absorption and staining. But the second issue is that arched doorways like this limit how much you can move furniture around, because the deep arches are really visually pleasing, but they're also pretty narrow. So if you're trying to move a large cabinet or a couch or something like that, you might find that you don't have the vertical space you need to get it through there, and you may have to get creative in getting something into your home. All right, so moving into the living room, I want to point your attention to the colors in this space. Again, we've got the same fresco on the walls in this kind of blush beige tone, but a lot of the other colors in here are neutral as well. Neutrals on the sofas, neutral plaster around this fireplace, a neutral sisal rug underneath. In this photo here, it's really just the yellow on the pears, the green on the plant in the background, and maybe you could argue the green on these couch cushions. But overall, it's a very neutral palette that's just so calming and easy to spend time in. Now, speaking of the furniture, I love how they've collected different pieces in here and arranged them all together into one seating area without everything feeling matchy-matchy. They do have two of the same rattan chairs flanking the fireplace on either side, and two of the same ottomans in the center of the setup, but other than that, as far as I can tell, every other piece of furniture is unique. And they've even gone so far as to include unique shapes on the lampshade, because as you can see here, this one is a cone shape while this one is, I guess, a squarish cone or a pyramid, but I still think this room could use a little bit of work. Personally, I think there are too many chairs in here and it's too crowded. You can seat around 9 or more people just in this one small setup alone, but there's not enough places to put your drinks or to put food down, right? With these ottomans, they're already covered in books. It's not really the most inviting place to put down a dish of food or to drop your drink. So unless they're moving those out and putting a proper coffee table in there, then I don't exactly know where everyone is going to orient themselves. I think this is probably better suited for around 6 or 7 people in this zone rather than 9, 10 or more like they have it set up right now. But fortunately, because these 2 rattan chairs are sitting on either side of the fireplace, they are going to be pretty light, so you can just move those out and have a little bit more of an intimate experience. But with that said, one thing I think they absolutely nailed in here are the curtains next to the fireplace. They're going all the way from the ceiling down to the floor, this beautiful cream color that puddle just a little bit on the floor, and you can imagine when that hot Italian sun is coming through in the afternoons, it's just going to diffuse it so nicely and make the room glow. Now, just off of the formal living room that we've been looking at, they've got more of an informal, casual family room, and I actually like the vibe of this one even more. It's got this beautiful sloped ceiling that blends perfectly in with the walls, and these woven baskets and ceramics hanging on that wall that just give it that natural Tuscan feel. And they've also injected a little bit more saturation into the space with some furniture pieces that just kind of dial up the color just a couple notches. So whereas the other more formal living room felt a little stiff, this one feels more casual, more relaxed, and just a place where you can kick back and hang out with your family or friends. Now, one thing I think they missed on in here is the rug. It's too small for the space. You can see this rattan chair that's closest to us here is half sitting off of the rug. And I know the prevailing view is that you should have the front legs of each piece of furniture sitting on the rug, and they do have that here, but because this chair is sitting at an angle, it kind of feels like it's almost sliding off the edge of the rug. And in this case, they just should have went with something bigger so that it can sit on there confidently and won't be kind of in this no man's land on again, off again sort of position. It's also worth mentioning that rattan does have a tendency to dry out in low humidity, and because we're in Tuscany, the summers are humid but the winters are really dry, and so the rattan may crack or get loose if it's not conditioned properly. Alright, now let's move on to one of the dining rooms because this room is super cool. As you can see immediately, they're leaning way more into color here than we've seen in the rest of the home, and I think they've done it beautifully because they've actually carried some of the same tones that we've already seen in other rooms directly into this room. And specifically, I'm talking about this deep terracotta red and the sage green that we saw in the entryway. And this contrast of deep, rich colors gives the space such a warmth and energy to it that feels really nice to step into. But a couple things I should point out in here. First, we're getting quite a bit of natural light from the left side here, so I'm assuming that there are some doors here probably going out to the garden. And that's super important because when you choose deep, rich colors like this, you need to make sure that you've got enough natural light coming in that your space doesn't look like a dungeon. And especially when you've got a dark ceiling like this, it tends to make the room feel shorter than it is. And so you need plenty of natural light to keep it elevated and prevent the space from feeling claustrophobic. But we also have to talk about this incredible brass pendant light. It's actually a pulley style pendant which originated in workshops in the 19th century because workers needed to be able to move light up or down depending on if they were doing more detailed work where they need more light or something less detailed that required a more diffused light. But there are plenty of places in this home where you can eat, and I want to show you a couple of those now. First, we've got this summer kitchen, not the main kitchen, it's more where they do some casual cooking, and it really matches a lot of the tones of the rest of the home. We've got the soft pastel walls and ceiling that matches what we saw in the living room and in the entryway, and a similar green on the cabinets and the shelf above that we've seen all throughout the home. So I can imagine this is a place where they cook breakfast, make something quick, sit down at this dining table, have a quick bite to eat, and leave the house or just get on with their day. But then there's the main kitchen, and you can see right away how it's definitely more serious than the summer kitchen we just saw. Now for me, one of the things that stands out right away are the colors in this room. They've got this really interesting contrast between the upper cabinets in white and the lower cabinets in this kind of soft dusty blue, and behind there, they've got a natural stone backsplash that goes all the way up to the cabinets that looks really good and adds a nice shimmer of light as the natural light comes into this room. And then above the cabinets, they've got the white walls, white ceiling, and even these white wooden beams. Now, I think this was a big miss in here, and they should have left the wooden beams natural, because you can imagine having these dark, natural wood lines on the ceiling would just bring so much warmth and character to this room. So I don't like that they've painted them white in an attempt to make this more minimalist or modern. I think staying classic here would have definitely been the right choice. And then once the food is cooked, you bring it out here to the outdoor dining area. And this is just such classic Tuscany, right? You're looking into the backyard, maybe you see some vineyards around, it's a soft, cool summer evening. The breeze is breezing all around. You know, this is the kind of space that you think about when you think about a Tuscan villa. Eating outdoors, sharing wine with friends, at a spot that looks exactly like this. But before I show you more of what's outdoors, I want to show you a couple of the bedrooms in this space because they're pretty interesting as well. We're going to take a look at 4 different bedrooms, starting with this one, which again, they've integrated this same shade of red, almost kind of like an orangey red, really deeply into this room. Obviously, they've got it on the bed frame and the 4 posts coming up from the bed, but it's also right into the bedding itself, in the headboard, this Tootsie Roll pillow, and the bedside lamps that are sitting on either side of the bed. And there's a really nice natural texture to the canopy that's hanging above the bed, and it provides such good contrast to the smooth metallic surface of the bed frame itself. Now, if that was the red bedroom, then this one is the green bedroom. And again, they're using a very similar shade of green to what we've seen again and again throughout this home, on the walls, on the ceiling, and also on this cabinet on the left side. They've got this well-proportioned rug sitting under the bed, which I think was a good choice to bring a little bit more warmth into the space, but I think they missed the mark again by painting these wooden beams white instead of leaving them a nice deep natural wood color. They would look so good as a dark wood contrasting with the light green we've got in here. It would match really well with the rattan furniture that we've got, but they just decided that it needed to go white. Now, this 3rd bedroom is actually just off of the formal living room that we saw earlier, and it's a little bit more formal itself. Fewer colors, a very similar pastel fresco to what we've seen earlier, and maybe this one is for grandma and grandpa. And then the 4th bedroom, we've really just got a pretty narrow angle of, but you know what I'm going to say about this one, which is that they finally nailed it with the beams on the ceiling. Look at that beautiful color. That's what we should have seen in the upstairs bedroom in the main kitchen. It would look so good contrasting against those lighter colors. And I'm really upset that they decided not to do that, because these beams are such a beautiful piece of this home's history, and covering them up with white paint is just such a disservice. But now let's take a look at the bathrooms, because I honestly think that the bathrooms in this villa are some of the most unique spaces in the entire home. In this first bathroom, they've got a really nice square glazed tile on the floor that's stretching halfway up the wall, this gorgeous dark wood vanity with this really nice black and white marble countertop, and then this freestanding tub with some pretty unique spherical pink feet. Honestly, I didn't expect that in here because the furniture in this home has been pretty classic so far, but it kind of works. But it also matches the soft pink tones in the floor tiles, as well as the curtains on the wall. So overall, the entire palette of the room is pretty neutral with just a soft hint of pink. But there's nothing soft about this bathroom where they just go completely wild. First, this is a natural stone sink in this deep, deep green. And in my view, matched with the brass hardware, it looks incredible. Now, notice how they've also matched it with the ceramic tiles on the floor, which also looks so good. And then obviously on the walls, this incredibly bright floral red wallpaper, which is completely ridiculous, but in this room, it totally works. And I want to talk about why this works, because even if you were to copy and paste this bathroom into your own home, there's a very good chance it wouldn't work. But why does it work here? Because they've earned the right to overwhelm you. Think about it. The rest of this home, with very few exceptions, has been very calm and neutral. There's definitely some color splashed in, but there's nowhere in the home that is overwhelming with color that makes you feel like you need to step inside yourself to get away from it. No, it's the opposite. So many neutral tones, neutrals on the walls, neutrals on the ceilings. I mean, they even painted the wooden beams white. But when you step into this bathroom, it's the exclamation point on this home that tells you you've arrived. And I say this because so many people try to use colors in their home in the wrong way. They just drench their home with color, and it ends up looking really cheap and tacky. So if you love color, a much safer approach is to use neutrals more heavily and only inject color much more sparingly. Then the colors you do implement will stand out so much more, just like they do in this bathroom. Now, the other thing I really love about this bathroom is the mirror. They could have easily gone with a standard rectangular mirror and that would have been fine. But instead, they decided to go with a bit of a different shape, this kind of coat of arms or shield shape, to add some additional visual interest. And I always say, if you want to make your bathroom more interesting, one of the easiest ways to do it is to change your mirror. Get a shape that's a little interesting. And I'm not talking about some crazy shape that makes it hard to use. No, you don't want to be squinting in order to see yourself while you're brushing your teeth. Instead, just go with a shape that you haven't seen before, that you don't see in day-to-day life. Something like this, a coat of arms, a shield. but it doesn't even have to be this intricate. Or it can just be something as simple as a rectangle with rounded corners. Whatever it is, just step a little bit outside of your comfort zone and go with something that'll make someone who steps into your bathroom come out and comment to you, "That's a nice mirror." And you'll say back to them, "Yeah, it is." But now let's go into the backyard, because obviously if you have a Tuscan villa, you need to have a pristine backyard. And this one does not disappoint. First, starting with this incredible swimming pool. They don't show the entire pool in these photos here, but I think you can imagine the type of pool I'm talking about. It's like a long lap style pool that they really love in Mediterranean design. It definitely looks stunning, just like it does here. I mean, look at this water. It looks absolutely incredible. But the interesting thing is, if you actually want to use this pool for laps, you can't. Because as you can see here, there are steps going down into the pool. So you would hit the steps when you're doing laps, and it's actually not functional for that. But of course, if you just want to have pool parties, have people over, put your feet in the pool while you're reading a book, all these sort of things, of course, this pool is perfect for that. And especially with a well-manicured lawn like they've got here, looks absolutely incredible from the upper levels of the home. But if you're looking to do laps, unfortunately, this is not the pool for you. But I think what's also super interesting here is the wall behind it. This is very likely an original wall that marked the edge of the property. And so this wall itself might be something like 200 years old. And you can see that there's a ton of vegetation on top of the wall, which makes me think even more strongly that this is a privacy barrier blocking the backyard from the next home over. And next to the pool, they've got this incredible bar area. This is what life in a Tuscan villa is all about, right? Having a drink next to the pool, hanging with your friends, listening to music. It's a Tuesday afternoon. You're not working because you're retired. This is the life you're looking for, right? And in my view, they totally nail the design here. You definitely want some sun coverage in case it gets too hot during those summer afternoons. But look at the green tile backsplash behind there. Those tiles are so exquisite. Different colors reflecting the summer light in different ways. It just looks stunning. And I'm sure when the sun sets, the light is going to dance off of those tiles in an even more unique way. Now, I can't quite tell if they've got a barbecue or if it's just a bar out here, but if it were my place, I would definitely want a full grill, a couple refrigerators, a full bar setup, which they may have around the other side. We don't have photos of that, so I can't say for sure. But if this is going to be your home, you want this place fully stocked and ready to go so that when you're hanging around by the pool, you've got everything you need: food, drinks, good music, everything you need to entertain. So with all that said, what can we learn from this home? Well, first, recognize where you are. If you build an ultra minimalist white box mansion in Tuscany, it would be so out of place. But a villa like this one that pays attention to the details and uses natural materials and textures, it makes so much sense. Second, don't be afraid to use color, but also don't overuse it. They've got tons of beautiful colors all throughout this home, but they're all tastefully chosen natural hues, so they feel right at home. And third, make sure your outdoor areas are as good as your indoor areas. And if you're in Tuscany, having a nice pool, outdoor dining area, and bar area is an absolute must. And when you nail the outdoor spaces, it gives you that authentic Italian feeling without overdoing it with unnecessary luxuries. Beautifully, beautifully done. So if you liked this video, I've linked to a few more property walkthrough videos in the description below. And you should definitely check out this video up here where I break down a stunning loft apartment that also leans into natural materials and textures, but with a bit of a different twist. I'll see you there.